Thank you all so much for being here today, and thank you for your patience. I know it is warm in this room, but this is a fantastic day, and we're so happy to have you all here for this special 250th anniversary event. So again, good afternoon. My name is Karina, and welcome to the Council Chamber of the Old State House. This building, now a National Historic Landmark, was built in 1713 and was originally known as the Townhouse. The townhouse was the seat of the British government in colonial Boston, and it was in this room that the royal governor, appointed by the King of England, ruled the colony of Massachusetts Bay. Up until the spring of 1776, that is, at which time the British government and military evacuated Boston, and in July of 1776, as we all know, the Continental Congress in Philadelphia proclaimed the colony's independence from Great Britain. The Declaration was approved on July 2nd, 1776, and was announced publicly on July 4th, 1776. News of the Declaration spread relatively quickly throughout the colonies. Through a written copy of the Declaration, and though it did not arrive in Massachusetts until July 15th, 1776, it was carried here expeditiously by horseback. Plans were made once it arrived for a formal reading in Boston on July 18th, 1776, in the very room where we are this afternoon. And so it came to pass that on that date, July 18, 1776, 250 years ago today, in this very room where we gather, that the Declaration was read aloud publicly in Massachusetts for the first time. In fact, the Declaration was actually read to people for the first time inside this room before it was read for people outside from the balcony, where we read it on July 4th every year. This was read by John Greenleaf and Thomas Crafts. Among the people gathered outside was Abigail Adams, whose memory is here with us today, along with her letter to her husband John Adams recounting the reading. While wealthy Boston merchant and patriot John Rowe was not present for the reading of the Declaration, his memory is here with us today as well as his diary entry recalling the great confusion in town and the celebration that followed the Declaration being read. As mentioned, the Declaration was read from the balcony by Thomas Craft and John Greenleaf. John Greenleaf's son, Daniel, subsequently published an account of the reading in the Boston Gazette, recalling that the celebration culminated in people climbing up to the roof and tearing down the lion and unicorn statues from the top of the building. On the evening of July 18, 1776, these last remaining symbols of the British monarchy were carried off and burned in the street. Daniel Greenleaf's memory is also here with us today. Should you have any questions or comments for him after the program, an excerpt to his letter from the Boston Gazette is also on display. Also with us today is the memory of one of the British officers then held under house arrest after he and his fellow officers mistakenly returned to Boston Harbor by ship after the British military and colonial government had fled the town. The officers were taken into custody, placed under house arrest, and required to attend the reading of the Declaration in the council chamber. What's important to remember about the Declaration is that it was intended to be a piece of oratory, to be read aloud. The success of the Declaration as a statement of national ideals was the product of a communication revolution in the American colonies, and the role of the press, along with pamphlets and circular letters among the people in each of the colonies, cannot be overstated. Without the sharing of these revolutionary ideas and ideals, it would have been impossible for most people to conceive of the colonies as a united nation of states. The reading of the Declaration in Boston was a shared civic ritual, an emotional appeal to the hearts and minds of the people in a moment of great need. We have known such moments in our nation history. In that spirit, I would like for us now to hear a reading of the Declaration of Independence on its 250th anniversary, July 18, 1776, by some of Massachusetts' fantastic students.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and the equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive by these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for the light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves, by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessary which contains them to alter their former system of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and separation, all having in a direct object the instablement of the absolute tyranny over the estates. To prove this, let facts be submitted to the candidate world. He has refused to assist the laws, the most awesome and necessary for the public goods. He has forbidden the governors to pass laws of alignment and press importance unless suspended in their operation till his assistance should be obtained, and when so suspended he has utterly neglected to attend them. He has refused to pass other laws for the operation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and forbidden to Tories only. He called together legislative bodies at a place unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of the fatiguing them into the complex with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for the opposing with manly firmness in his invasions on the right of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected.
Whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining, in the meantime, exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsion within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislators. He has affected to render the military independence of the superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, given his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it alone once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule to these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislators and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever.
He has dedicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has pillaged our seas, ravaged our coast, burned our towns, destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foraged mercenaries to complete the works of death. Salvation and tyranny have already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perversity, secrecy paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and total unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas to bear armies against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and barthoms, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us. He has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the Marcells, Indian savages whose known rules of welfare is a undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered by only by repeated injuries. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been waiting to attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislators to attend in unwarrantable jurisdictions over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have applied to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindness and to disallow these ascriptions, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and constancy. We must therefore exquisite in the necessity which our denounce our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, in enemies in war, in peace friends.
We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America and General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor.
Thank you all so much. That was fantastic. I know it's a very big document. It is an intense document. And so you were all so brave for standing up here and speaking today. We really appreciate it. So again, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to our students, Eurecia, Ivy, Tobias, Madeline, and Gabriella. And thank you to all of you as well for joining us and marking this important occasion. The room we are in today holds so much history. It is a place where people's rights and liberties were debated and decided by the government that sat here before and after the American Revolution. It's a place where people from across Massachusetts fought for their rights and the rights of their communities, as seen in the petitions that surround us in this room today. And it is the place where the Declaration of Independence was read for the first time for a crowd in Boston. Hearing the Declaration today from these fantastic young people in this room that holds so much weight on its 250th anniversary, I hope we are all inspired to use our voices to speak up for each other and come together as we head into the future. I hope you stay a bit to say hello to some of our fantastic reenactors today, and that you enjoy your visit to the Old State House and the Old South Meeting House, these revolutionary spaces as they were. Thank you.